to write IELTS Task 1 process writing at a high level. That is at least 6, right? And higher than that. And surprisingly, this is not as complicated as many people think. So first of all, have a quick look at the sample. Well, when I say quick, I mean pause the video and then take as much time as you need to think. But please do take the time to analyze the chart, really understand what's happening. If you don't know some words, you could look them up if you really, really must. But otherwise, you could still try to understand the visual here, okay? Think about what's happening here and how you would select the main features, because you see, even if you do get a process like that, the instructions are still the same. You still have to summarize, select, report, compare, etc., right? So what is happening here? Like, what's the main idea? All right, so pause and analyze. Then we're going to talk about how to describe it at level 7 or higher. Would I explain this chart to somebody that I wanted to simply explain, or if I wanted to understand it for myself? So this is how I would do it really quickly. Okay, like we'll start with obviously analyzing the description. So the diagram shows how water is processed. Okay, so we're processing water to do what? To make it drinkable. Okay, so before we make it drinkable, it's not actually drinkable water, but then we make it. Okay, I got it. So we are talking about how to turn some water, any random water, to make it into drinkable water. Okay, got it. So let's see. It might be very hard to actually understand the overview right away, so I highly recommend that you just go into the nitty-gritty part. Just go into the details first. Start with what's happening at the beginning, then just follow the picture. Just follow the steps, okay? Then you will have a better understanding of it at the end. It's like watching a movie. If you just start the movie, can you really summarize what the movie is all about from the beginning without actually fully like watching the movie? No, right? So in the same way, you want to really watch the movie. Go into the details first and then summarize it, okay? In any kind of a process, what you want to do is study the process, like study the chart carefully from detail to detail. And then as you study it and understand it better, you'll start realizing which is extra, which is main, how to explain this better, okay? So watch the movie first, and then tell me the summary of it. Tell me the essentials. Okay, so first of all, what's happening here? Abstraction, what's that? Oh, it is taking the water out of the river. Okay, so we're starting with the river, so there's water in the river, right? Then we take that water into the reservoir. How? Well, by using these pumping, like these pumps. So we basically, I could say also, they pump out of this water to collect water or to take water from this. And this process is called abstraction. Okay, why are we talking about how to get it? Like, so what, you know? Okay, so first of all, get the water like this. That's it. You see how I'm simplifying it? At first, I studied the details, then I really got it, and I can put it in simple English. Okay, it's about getting the water from natural places like river. Got it. Then what? Okay, so then we come to this clarification. What is that? It's making the water clear. Okay, well, what do you mean you make it clear? How do you make it clear? Well, maybe it's not that clear. Why not? Because it's this natural water, so it might have all these things, you know, like dirt or whatever. So we gotta clean this first of all. How do we clean this? Well, in such clarification tanks. What is that? You know, tank is a place, like it's a place essentially, where we have this apparently some special tools or equipment. So you put this water from the reservoir and send it over there into these tanks that have flash mixer. What's that? So it kind of mixes something, and this is where it's trying to, well, make the water clear, or kind of cleaning it up from like whatever that is unwanted. Obviously we want the water to be as clean as possible, so okay, we're doing that. Then what's happening? You see the process kind of continues here before it goes there. So let me study here what's happening. Okay, so after you clear this, what happens is that there's this kind of a sludge holding thing. So what happens after you clean the water? There's some dirty parts or anything that is unwanted, right? So the clean water goes in one direction or goes on and with the next step, but what happens to the water that is left over in this place? Like what happens to the water after we cleaned it, right? Like there's certain thing that is left there. So we keep it apparently here in some another special tank, for this. And this water is not just like thrown out, you see, or this dirt. Apparently it is sent to the centrifuge. It's another piece of equipment that has this filter press. So what essentially is doing is that I think it's trying to make this additional dirt, for example, easy to remove or get rid of. So it has to press it so it doesn't take up too much space. That's why we press things. So it kind of filters it like that. And then for easier transportation, we use this, apparently they use this conveyor thing, this belt, conveyor belt it's called. So we're putting all this, anything left over that we don't want, and then through a conveyor, we send it to the truck. And what this truck is doing, it's disposal. Disposal means to, throw it away basically, that we don't need this anymore. Okay, so this is what happens after we clean this. Then what? So what happens to the water that we cleaned? I mean, it's good enough, so it goes on to the next stage. And what happens here? It's called filter, taking out any bits. So first of all, we made it a little bit clearer. Then now we're cleaning it even further, you see, like kind of refining it and making it cleaner and better. And here we are using this special tool, like rapid gravity filter. Apparently it's rapid, it has to be fast. So it kind of, any little bits, well, pieces are all kind of are cleared out. And why are we doing this? Or so what? What happens next is the like pre-last stage. You see, the water at the stage is not ready yet. I mean, yeah, it might be clean, but it's not all that clean. There is some germs, these things that are left. So we gotta disinfect it. It might have some infections or whatever. So what do? Apparently, they add some chemical, like called chlorine, and they put the water, they sent it there, okay? They mix it with this chlorine. And now it's apparently clean and safe. So then they just send it to the storage space. Before, you see, they're not just cleaning it and then just, that's it, start using this in your house. They're keeping it somewhere, and from that place, from that storage space, they're sending it to people's homes so you can drink and use this clean water. Okay, you see, while I was explaining it, I was using you, we can see, they do that. But in my writing, I don't need that kind of language, right? Because then I need to. This was done to really understand the picture. But when I write, I'm going to follow the writing guidelines, making the language a little bit formal or academic, not necessarily formal, but not too informal either. Anything redundant like we can see, they, we, that's unnecessary. It doesn't help the message. So, and that's not quite appropriate as well. So I'm going to remove all that language and use the more appropriate one. Okay, I'm going to show you what I have done. So as usual, I actually do plan my task 1 writing. This was a game changer, actually. In the past, I also used to think that task 1 is not as important, so I'm not going to plan. I'm just going to look at the picture and then just start writing. But then I realized that it was not actually helping me write effectively. And, well, they were not the best task 1s. So I started actually planning like this, and that was a game changer. Okay? Because having a plan like this helps me to have this clarity, and I know what I'm trying to really say, and I can organize it well. So when I plan task 1, I just ask myself, like, what are we talking about? What's the topic? It's making river water drinkable water. Okay, simple as that. No need to complicate anything here, okay? All you're doing while planning is to really help yourself understand the chart as much as you can. And that will not happen if you complicate the language. Okay, what's the main stuff? Well, I can see it's heavily mechanized process, right? And what do you mean by that? Like heavily mechanized? Or is like, so what? I ask myself such questions to formulate an overall kind of overview of this concept. Okay, so what? Well, there are a lot of stages happening in the factory. That is how I know. That's why I say that it is quite mechanical process. It's not a man-made, it's not a natural process. Okay, so what? What else I could add? Because this is not enough, obviously, This overview does not help you to imagine this picture. It doesn't help you to get that clarity. So I'm going to add a little bit more and say that the key ingredient, this natural water, goes through several stages there in the factory, involving such and such before it becomes safe to consume. And then it goes to homes for use. Like that. That's my overview. You might think it's detailed or whatever, but no. I am aiming for a good overview that really helps me to get that picture in the reader's head before they go into the details. So when they read, they can understand without going actually into details. And I cannot write any shorter than that, because then I wouldn't be able to write effective overview. And for 7 or higher in writing, we do need a clear, well done overview. And to write such overviews, you really need to analyze the picture. You need to really understand what's happening. You can't just do this by simply counting the number of stages or saying the first and the last, or randomly selecting details that you see. That is not how you write the overview. Does that make sense? To explain this a bit further, to understand, or any other charts next time, I would recommend this. Imagine that you are an expert in this field. Well, before you can become an expert, you got to study what's happening. And then imagine that you have somebody, your neighbor, your friend, your brother, sister, who has no idea how this water you have in your home, like how or where you get it, Could you explain that as an expert? Because you're an expert, and I emphasize the word expert, real experts do not complicate things, okay? Like, because you're talking to somebody who has no idea at all. You cannot be using complicated language or anything like that. All you have to do is, in simple, plain English, just tell them what's happening. All right? Like, this is how you would explain any other process, if you wanted to focus on communicating rather than showing off. Because as an expert, you could also just show off and start with technical information and all of that, and at the end of your speech, your listener, your neighbor, your friend, your family is all confused. Like, we don't want that, right? We don't want those show-off people that have that expert knowledge, but they cannot actually deliver it properly. So here, our goal is to really understand it and then communicate that in the simplest, clearest ways. After I finish my explanation, you should have this idea of, oh, that's how we get this water, like that. Okay. So here's my plan. Body paragraphs, I really kind of didn't plan this. I decided to just swing it. This might not be the best thing for you guys to do, so I would still recommend that you paragraph it according to the stages or how things change. When one thing changes significantly to another, you could separate those, because we're talking about one thing, but then we talk about another thing, or one thing moves or changes to another. That makes sense to separate those. But yeah, I decided to go with this. But let's see how that turned out. I want you to read the sample, pause the video, and think. Read to yourself. Don't focus on vocabulary grammar. As you read, simply think about, do you understand this? Is it easy to follow? And imagine that I'm explaining it to you in a simple, plain English. I have no interest in making you impressed. I just wanted to use the basic language skills that I have to explain to you what I saw or what I understood in the picture. After you finish reading, think about how easy it was to read and understand and follow the steps. Could you really? Could you imagine the picture by just reading this report without actually seeing it? Did I explain things easily? How did I connect them? How did I link? Think about these cohesive devices like while, before it, right? Like how I use referencing, etc. So again, I hope you understand most of it, but at the same time, some of you may not be impressed because you don't see a lot of crazy fancy words. But that is not the goal, actually. The goal is, could you understand? Could you follow it? And to be able to write like this, the goal is to focus on these two. Okay, task achievement and cohesion coherence. While these two can just, you use what you actually know. If you think too much about these two, you're not going to be able to finish it on time. So the goal is, Can I just explain it using what I actually know? How else I can make it better? Okay, I'm talking about this process. Like, okay, I'm here. I'm talking about this, but why is it really happening? How could I explain this better? Because, well, why there's a truck? I can't just say there's a truck or this conveyor. Like, what is this? What is happening, right? Or storage reservoir, like what? Just, okay, so the water starts with river and then to reservoir and then clarification. Why this is happening? See, you need to understand and then aim to make it easier for the reader to understand. Like, look for ways you can explain without overdoing that, because if you overdo it, or like how you can overdo this is when you add your opinions, whether this is good or bad, whether we should do it like this or not. That's your opinion. We don't need that. Okay? Just help me understand, like, whatever you say. If there's any way you can comment on it and show your language skills, that'd be great. You know, that's what you should do. So go ahead and read that. And then think about the improved version. How or why this improved version is better. Is it only vocab? And notice that this is for high-level candidates, okay? Those who wouldn't find it difficult to write at this level. By the way, for those who are at 5 or 6, if your scores are like that, you should not be aiming to write like this at all. This is not for you. What you should be aiming for is something like this, you know, where you can improve your task achievement, your clarity of your message using what you already know, and doing that under exam conditions well. That's what you're aiming for. Once you can do this consistently on lots of different types of processes, then you move on to, like, what's the next level? Then you think about more advanced and better versions. But by this time, most of this vocab you should already know. Like, you may not know what is comprehensive, what's that? Or what is potable, like, what's that? Like various endpoints, like, what's that? And then you could start. But so if there are like 20 or 30% of the words that you don't know, you could learn, that'll be great. But if there's more than that, then you are not actually at this level, and trying to write like this is not going to help. Aim to write at this level first, and then this. Okay? Ideas are pretty much the same, actually. The only thing that is different here, or some of the things that are different here, are the language. Right? Otherwise, and there's a little bit more description, there's a little bit more detail to it. So you'll see that as well in these. It's not just a vocab thing, it's description to make it better. All right? So yeah, this is how you take a around 7 kind of level task 1 process writing and make it better like that.